Good evening, everyone. Myself, Swati Lakshmi, the community lead of DSC SJCET. So, everyone is here, right? So, let's begin. It's my pleasure to welcome Aarnav Jindal. Speaking of him, he is the product manager at Scalar among Google Kickstart top 3 percentile. Code Chef 6 star developed an interactive gamified resume with views from 120 plus countries and founded three initiatives during and after college to help raise the quality and average job offer value received by graduate engineers in India. We are really happy to have you here, sir. Next, let me welcome our beloved Sergio sir, who is our faculty advisor. So, welcome. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome all our audience. Really happy to see you utilize your valuable time to join us. Welcome all. Now, let me hand over the session to Aarnav Jindal. Sir, the mic is yours.
Firstly, thank you so much, everyone, for inviting me, especially Sergio sir and Aishwarya and the DSC SCGAT team. Really happy to be here, and it's really exciting to see people who are interested in competitive programming since it's a great way to enhance your skills and get a great job opportunity, which is obviously something that we are all looking for. So, how the structure that I will like to, structure it, this talk would be initially I would like to give a brief about myself, like why I was picked by the team for competitive programming, uh, a talk on competitive programming, followed by what exactly is competitive programming for those who are new to it. Finally, how anyone who is new to competitive programming can start it and get decent at it, and I think followed by some Q&A at the end. I think that will be great. So firstly, about my experience with competitive programming, I am currently a candidate master at Code Forces, which is a platform used by people around the globe, and you can say only 5,000 or so people have been able to reach the candidate master title on Code Forces around the world in the past 10 years. So that's one thing. Second would be Code Chef. So I have a 6-star rating at Code Chef, which again, only a handful people can boast of. So I think that's mostly about my journey with competitive programming. Finally, ending with I have been able to secure good ranks in Google Kickstart, which is a great way to get into Google, getting an opportunity to interview at Google at least. So I have been fortunate enough to be in the top 3 percentile of many competitions hosted by Google Kickstart, and I think that has helped me a lot with my interviews and accelerated my profile on LinkedIn as well. So next, getting into competitive programming. So what is competitive programming? Competitive programming is, as many people like to put it, a sport. It is an advanced form of DSA wherein you apply your knowledge of DSA, time complexity, space complexity, and whatever algorithms and data structures along with some advanced data structures, like something like bit set, segment tree, tries, or Fenwick tree. So all these things. So you utilize your knowledge of all these concepts and try to solve in a given time frame, let's say 2 hours, and solve 5 or 6 problems. And each problem that you solve, you get some points with it. Now there are close to 100, or on Code Forces are 10,000 people that are competing with you, and each minute that goes by, the score that you receive for any individual problem goes down, and each time you submit the answer and you get the answer wrong, your score goes down. So that's the way competitive programming generally works. Now, why do we even do competitive programming? Like, what is so special about it that everyone is going gaga over it? So the reason is that competitive programming is a great way to segregate yourself from the crowd. It's a great way to stand out of the crowd. So all of you guys here who are, who have joined the session, all of you will do data structures and algorithms from one or the other university, including your great college. So what is something different, something special about you, which makes you more employable and more interesting than the other candidates available out there? So competitive programming is one of the ways that you can show your profile in a certain different light. It tells people that, see, I know DSA, that's a given. If you are doing CP, competitive programming is often called CP in the community. So if you are doing CP well, it is a given that your DSA is strong. So the recruiters know that, the companies know that. So when you say I'm doing CP, they know that your skills are beyond the crowd. Like you're better than the average person that the company is going to employ. So that gives you a certain edge when it comes to your interviews, when it comes to, applying off campus, and how your resume gets shortlisted. I'll talk, in detail about why and how this works, but that is the basic gist of why people pursue competitive programming. I think people would argue that there are other things like open source and maybe even doing your own startup or going for masters. So those are other ways of getting good jobs. But again, like I say, there are many avenues to achieve the goal that you want to. But CP, at least and especially in India, is the best way to get a good job in a company, let's say Google, Facebook, Microsoft. Because if you see, when a company like Google opens up their application, if you go through the stats, right, that the company publishes, or I have been fortunate enough to have some recruiter friends, so they tell me that close to 10,000 people at least apply on every job opening. And how do you get that one job when there are 10,000 people applying for it? So that's when CP helps you out. That's what helps you make your profile shine, make it stand out of the crowd. That's one thing. Second is, when you do CP, you will notice that most of the companies, the way their interviews are structured, it's based on DSA, very heavily on DSA. So if you do CP, CP again is a game of DSA, CP, time complexity, space complexity, and getting the answer right in as short a time as possible. So that's very, very similar to what happens in an actual interview. So if you are able to do well in CP, you can say that you are in a very good position to interview with these companies and get a job opportunity. That's the second thing. So to give you guys more motivation for CP, I have talked to plenty of people around me who were not even pursuing a BTech, right? They were pursuing a BSc, or a BE in engineering, and it's like a 3 year course. Like there's a 3 year course wherein they teach you computer science. So that was a tier 3 college, a 3 year course in computer science in a tier 3 college. That guy, he was very good at CP, and he directly got an opportunity to go into Google just because of his great competitive programming profile. Think about it. We spent 4 years in college, then we still dream of getting into Google. But someone who was pursuing a 3 year degree, he got into Google just because of CP. So that's the power of this sport, this platform, and that's why many people are very, very attracted to it. So that would sum up why people pursue competitive programming. So moving on to the final segment, that is how you can start competitive programming. Right now that we know competitive programming is a great thing and it can help you achieve great heights. So how do we start? Now the first thing that you need to do is improve your DSA. As I said, DSA forms the base for competitive programming. So for DSA, my general advice is go for a course. You can take a course in DSA from, there are plenty institutes that are selling these courses like hotcakes right now. So go with the one that you like and you can easily relate to and understand. My personal recommendation would be a course by Pratik Narang. He has a course in basic C++ on Udemy. It is a 350 rupees course. That's not a big amount at all. And he's the guy I learned from. So I would definitely recommend going through his lectures and going through his course. He has now he's working with an organization called Coding Minutes. So I think that would be a great way to start your journey in DSA. Now, once that is done, you can start practicing on Code Chef. Now, Code Chef is a great platform for beginners in CP because Code Chef has a format called long contest. They have one long contest every month, and the structure is that within 10 days you have to solve 10 problems, and each problem has 4 levels, 3 to 4 levels, and you can write a brute force approach to get 1 level right. Then you can write a semi-optimized approach to get more points. So anyone who is new to CP, this environment is very conducive because you get 10 days to think about 10 problems, 7 to 8 problems. That's basically 1 day per problem. That's enough time to solve a problem. And if you're not able to understand that problem, go around, dig on the internet, and try to find a solution. So that is a very good way to start your journey into CP because that's a very comfortable platform to begin with. Now, once you start doing long challenges, I recommend that you go on and continue doing long challenges till you reach a 4-star rating. Now, 4-star rating is the division between Division 1 and Division 2. These are some categorizations done by Coach. So once you hit 4-star, you are in a good position to move to another platform. Now, why people should move at this time is because beyond 4-star, when you take part in contests, the questions become more about maths and less about DSA. They increase the level of maths in the question, and maths, is very difficult for a lot of people. That's why only few people are able to master it. But if you look at it objectively, maths is not a criteria for getting into a good company like Google or Facebook. It's DSA. So why should I care about it? So that's a good time to transition to the next great platform, which is Codeforces. Now, Codeforces has the structure that I talked about initially. You have 2 hours and you need to solve 5 to 6 questions, each escalating in their level in terms of the requirement of knowledge that you need. And each minute that goes by, the score that you can get, the points that you can get for a correctly answered question goes down. And each time you answer a question negatively, it very heavily impacts your score. Now, all those of you who have actually given an interview before, you will realize that this simulation, this is a very close simulation to an actual interview. Because if you give a wrong answer, your reputation goes down. Each minute that goes by and you're unable to answer, your reputation goes down. So it simulates an actual coding interview environment extremely well. So that's why it's a great platform to prepare yourself for an upcoming interview or any interview in general. And Codeforces, there is no limit. Just keep practicing. And if you can hit a candidate master rating someday, well, congratulations. That's an amazing accomplishment. And do post about it on whatever platform that you use. I generally advise people to use LinkedIn or Twitter. Great platforms to get attention from recruiters, because even if you have received, like, even if you are doing well in CP, you need a platform to connect with recruiters, to connect with software engineers who can help you out and give you an opportunity to interview in a company. So it's a marketplace. There's this law of supply and demand. So you need to go where the demand is. If you just sit in an open market where there is no demand, your supply will have zero value. So you need to go to the open markets, which are LinkedIn and Twitter in this case, and get some attention from these recruiters and software engineers. I think the final thing would be how to improve. Like, I've given you a format, structure to do. No, Swati, I'm not presenting anything. So yeah, going back to the question. So where was I? Right. So how to improve? Now, now that you have a structure, you will see many people are trying to follow the structure, but how do you improve, right? How do you improve above others? Like, I was able to achieve whatever I'm telling you in a span of, let's say, it was 4 8 months. Within 8 months, I was able to hit 6 star on CodeChef and 1932 on Code Forces. So the difference between me and many others was that they, after the contest got over, they were happy with the amount of and the kind of questions that they were able to do, and they just left the platform. Now that's what makes the difference, what you do after the contest gets over. And this is the interesting thing. The purpose of taking part in a contest is not just to practice your skills but also to learn, because you will often find that while you are able to do 2 or 3 questions, there are still 3 or 4 questions that you're not able to solve. And that's a great learning opportunity, right? Because where else do you get to know about the concepts that you need to improve? You need to um, improve your skills, but you don't know, right? Which concepts do I need to know, which concepts do I need to learn. So that's what this helps with. Once the contest is over, see the solutions, see the tutorial. So the tutorial will have answer to the questions that you were able to solve, as well as the questions you were not able to solve. So the questions that you were able to solve, when you go through the tutorial, you'll find that, let's say you solved the question in O(n) square time complexity. It often happens that the tutorial will provide you a solution which works in O of n time. So that's a good learning opportunity. It tells you, despite having done well, what you could have done better. That's a great learning opportunity. So definitely go through that. Second, let's say you did 3 questions well. Now, how do you do the fourth one? What was lacking in your understanding? What could you not understand? What could you not do? What could you have done differently to even solve the fourth question? So for that, you need to go through the tutorial. Now, after going through the tutorial, you will realize, okay, maybe I knew the concept, but I was unable to apply it. So you understand the gaps in your knowledge, and then you use the opportunity, and you keep on applying this principle. This is called upsolving. Solving a question after the contest is over, that is called upsolving. So you keep on doing this 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, you will realize that earlier you might have been able to do 3 questions in each contest, but now, since you've upsolved so many questions, in the next contest you might be able to solve the fourth one as well. And once that happens, that continues on, because your understanding has gone up, right? You now know more concepts, more ways of applying and solving different problems. So that's what makes the difference between a good competitive programmer and someone who is struggling to improve a lot. And so even the questions that you're able to do, that you're not able to do, let's say you did 3 questions, you see the fourth one. If you see that, okay, the fourth one, maybe I knew how to do it, there was some gap in my knowledge, some edge case got missed, so this was not a big deal. So then you go on to the fifth one, right? And you continue the practice. But if you were not able to do the fourth one and you're not able to understand it, uh, if you took some time to understand the problem, then there is no point moving on to the fifth one for the very same contest, because there is still a lot of gap in your knowledge for the question that you should have been able to solve. So there is no point in jumping to the next one. So that is my strategy of what to do and how to do after the contest is over. Cool. So I think that is all my knowledge that I had to share with you guys. Maybe you can take some questions from the audience now, Aishwarya. Okay, I don't think.
So everyone, please unmute and ask, or either put it in the chat. So there is a question in the chat, which language is best for competitive programming?
Great, great. Awesome question, Jay Shankar. So this is a very hotly debated topic, which is a good language for CP. My recommendation is C++, because as you might have studied in your college also, C++ and C are the languages which are very, very close to the computer, from all the modern languages that we know. So because of that, the languages work, like the execution is very quick, and if you learn C++ well, you will be able to code solutions which work much, much faster. Whenever you work in a language like C, Java, Python, JavaScript, they are built on top of C++ or on a layer. There's an abstraction between the machine and the language. So those languages work slower. Anytime in your life that you want to make quick programs, C++ is the go-to option. It takes more time to write the same program in C++, but it works very quickly and very efficiently. The same thing happens with CP. So in CP, you need to implement your solution and get the answer as quickly as possible, so that you can move on to the next question. And if there's a fault in your approach, you get to know quickly. So that is why my recommendation is always to go with C++. Cool. Next is from Khalid. He's asking how you learn new concepts or algorithm. So, Khalid, I think going back to the initial parts of the session, I first learned from a course, which again I would recommend go for Pratik Narang on Udemy. Great course, basics in C++. After that, I learned from experience. After you've done the basics, the best way to learn is by practice, and for that I'll recommend going and pursuing CP contests. That's the best way to learn. Next is, how many months does it take for an average person to achieve stability in DSA? So I would say it takes about 2 months of dedicated hard work and practice. If you have no experience at all, if you have some experience, like if you have some experience in DSA, then it would take like 1 month, 2 months. If you have no experience at all, then I think it will take 3 months to learn DSA completely, and after that 1 month to master it. Next is from Kanishk. He's asking, did you struggle in the beginning? Yeah, Kanishk, definitely. So, a lot of people talk about how they succeeded, but struggle is something that very few people talk about. No one was born a winner. It takes time, it takes effort to achieve what someone has been able to. So, let me tell you my story. I achieved a 6-star rating in CodeChef. So, that was like a dream at the time, right? And I felt like I am on top of the world. No one can defeat me now. Then I saw that my friends were doing code forces, right? And they said, anyone can do code chef. Come and take part in code forces. I was on my high. I said that I got 6-star on code chef. I can do anything. So went to code forces, took part in a contest, and I was destroyed. Um, those folks who had like a 4-star rating on CodeChef, they did very well. They were able to solve three questions on Code Forces. I could not solve even one. So that was a very strange incident. The reason it happened was because the format of Code Forces and CodeChef is very different, and no one told me that. I just nosedived into it without having any idea. So I was completely shattered and destroyed when I started. But the thing which is very important when you start anything new is persistence. And I had the persistence in me, to keep on going, keep on learning, and eventually succeed. I knew it takes some time to get acclimatized to any new environment. So for the next 3 to 4 contests, I got similar crushing defeats, but I didn't give up, kept on going, kept on learning. And eventually, within the next 4 months, I hit 1932 on Code Forces, and everyone was in awe. The guys who, so everyone starts at 1500, candidate master is 1900. While they were stuck at 1700, I hit 1900 just because of my persistence and perseverance. So everyone struggles, that's fine, but you need to have that persistence in you to overcome and accomplish. Next is from the team, I think, is compiling time an important factor in coding competitions? That's an interesting question. So I would say yes, because you want your code to execute as quickly as possible so that you can test your own test cases, right? Your sample cases. And even on the system, right? When you submit the answer, it takes time to evaluate that code on multiple test cases. Each question has like 100 test cases. If you are fortunate, maybe 10. But but a code which runs in, let's say, 1 second or 2 seconds on C++, it will run in 10 seconds on Python or 5 seconds in Java. You will see that on the CP platforms, the time requirements for Java and Python are more than C++, because the organizers know these languages run slower. So it's a matter of split seconds when you're taking part in contest. Who will win? Who will lose? Each passing second is extremely important. So that's why I think compile time does become an important factor.
So I think that's all. Any more questions? Yeah, we have one more question, I guess.
Alan Shaji, okay. Um, I believe development is an important DS is as a, if not more, how to keep the balance. Good question, Alan. I think that's an interesting point. So the reason I emphasize upon DSA is because DSA is a base regardless of where you go forward, right? Even if you go for something like development or you go for CP, both need development as a base. You cannot, just blindly go on and write code in hash maps, or maybe, writing something with dynamic programming, because I understand in development, while the requirement for DSA knowledge is less, you still need some knowledge, right? You cannot just blindly go on. Similarly with CP, there is a requirement for DSA. So I would say DSA is important regardless of what you're trying to do. Um, Coming next to, I think, the question that you had, which is development versus CP, or how to keep a balance. Now, from my 4 years of struggling through college, I realized that it's not the wisest thing to spend your time on both, because CP is a completely separate discipline, development is a completely separate discipline, and they have completely different job markets. If you go for a company, it will never happen. You can take my word for it, it will never happen that they ask you development and CP kind of questions within the same interview format. You can take my word for it. So either focus on CP and target those companies which focus on CP interviews, or focus on development and target open source or companies like Zomato or Swiggy, so which focus on more on real life application and real life like development concepts instead of DSA. So for pick one, whichever you like, and focus on that. I personally prefer CP because 95% of companies in India focus on CP. So that's my take on this. Next, Rajat, how much math is involved in CP and how do you learn the math foundations? So, Rajat, I think whatever maths you have learned in 11th and 12th, that's fine. That's more than enough for CP. What happened was recently, CodeChef started running out of good people to make questions. And what do you do to include hard questions when you don't have good enough guys to write questions for you? You start focusing on maths, which a lot of people are not comfortable with. That's what CodeChef did, and that's why many people left the platform also. So anywhere you go, only I think CodeChef is the only platform which increases the complexity of the question by bringing in maths into it. No other platform does it, based on my experience. Not sure what's coming up now, but that's my experience. So your basic 11th and 12th maths is fine. Focus on DSA and how you can solve tricky questions with DSA. Don't worry about maths that much. Ever been to ICPC? So, Rajat, this is something that I wish I could have done, and that's what I'm trying to say. My knowledge is not perfect. There are obviously some gaps, I think you might have some experience with ICPC. That's why you mentioned this question and this competition as well. So again, I have done ICPC questions on code forces. While I wanted to take part in ICPC, I was not able to get a group who was interested in doing it. So that's a dream that I could not complete. But even the ICPC questions I've gone through, the early questions are all focused on tricky implementations of DSA. On a high level, like on the top level, it gets interesting and goes to maths, because again, that's where the complexity can come in. Like there's a limited number of DSA concepts or questions that you can come up with, right? So the people just move on to maths. So again, the same thing happens, but for people like us who want, like my assumption here is that we are all looking for a good job, and that's why we are interested in this session and in CP. So doing DSA is fine enough. If you are just too much into it, then go for maths. If you want to achieve something great with CP, then go into maths as well. But otherwise, DSA is fine.
So, okay, I think there are no more questions. So, let's wind up the session. It's my honor to thank Mr. Aarnav Jindal for such an amazing session. Thank you so much, sir, for this session. It was awesome.
Thank you
Next,
so much.
let me thank each one of you for your time and cooperation. Thank you, one and all. Now, a feedback form is shared in the chat box. Kindly fill it without failure. So, thank you all. You can leave the meeting once you fill it.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you, sir.